Some citizens complain about being under surveillance, but they are told that if they have nothing to hide, they have nothing to fear. Still, news media regularly cover cases where citizens who have unusual behavior are put on suspicion lists, even though they have broken no laws. Now, luckily, this is a quote from the future. This is a quote from Edrogram, which is European Digital Rights newsletter, number 300. This is from 2025, so we still have 5 years until that. Or do we? Any one of you took math logic in college? So if you've forgotten that, that's OK. I will explain what do we have on the screen. This is one of the most common misconceptions about privacy, most common misconceptions about people hiding stuff. So what it basically says on the top line is for every person that belongs to the class of criminals, that person also belongs to the class of persons who have something to hide. Now, the middle line, that means from this statement follows that for every person that has something to hide, that person is also a criminal. Now, if you think about that logically, like I have, it's obviously false. But many people in the world assume that this is absolutely correct. Now, I'm going to talk about privacy, of course. And what even is privacy? Now, in my opinion, privacy consists of two major things. One is the autonomous right to choose who processes my information. For example, I may be OK with my family knowing where I live, but I'm not OK with the Amazon knowing where I live. That's my right to choose who. It also consists of the right to choose how is the information processed. I may be OK with someone manually working on my email address, but I'm not OK with processing it automatically. And what information, of course? Email address, home address, DNA data, I mean. It's all different levels, and that's my right. So that's one thing. The second thing is, of course, the right to decide who I interact with. And that, of course, includes the right to be left alone. If I don't want to talk with someone, I don't have to. So that's, in my opinion, comprises the most important parts of privacy. And are any of you, would any of you describe themselves as privacy conscious here in the audience? About a bit more than half. OK. So for the rest of you, and even for those who think they are privacy conscious but maybe aren't, I devised a little thought experiment. I call it the Schrödinger's video camera. Let's imagine you just bought a new apartment, maybe somewhere in Paris. Nice apartment, small, cozy apartment with a great view into the yard. And you've lived there for a while, for a month, two, maybe a year. And then you notice a video camera appears in the apartment, outside the apartment, in the yard. It's one of those video cameras where the dome is not see-through. You cannot see what's inside. You cannot see where the camera is looking at. Is it looking into your bedroom, or is it not? You don't even know if there is a camera. Maybe it's one of those fake cameras that doesn't have anything in it. But still, for me, and I hope also for you, this creates a feeling of uneasiness. Even though maybe there is no camera, maybe no one is filming you, but still you feel uneasy about having that outside your bedroom window. So that's my feeling of privacy. Now, I've given similar talks before, like this one a bit more than a year ago, and I've gotten different reactions to my talk, and I want to acknowledge some of them. So some of the reactions are funny, obviously. Some of them are affirmative or insightful. And of course, some of them are just plain ignorant, right? Because you can choose not to use your phone, and you can choose not to use Facebook. It's hard, but you can. So, but this presentation, I want to talk about the two remaining ones. What do we do now? And how do we counter this I've got nothing to hide mentality? Here's a short video from Twitter. So the lady here has borrowed the gentleman's phone and is trying to unlock the phone with a Face ID. To the more observant of you, it quickly becomes obvious that this is fake, right? But it's not why I included the video in here. I included the video because of the reactions on Twitter. Granted, these are not the average reactions. I picked them up. I cherry-picked them. But what you see here is that people really have this mentality. You hiding something? You must be a bad guy. And for this special edition at Disobey, what I want to do is I want to encourage you in the audience and people watching this online later on to disobey some of the rules of the society. So for this one here, my suggestion is conceal inexplicably. Do not explain why you're hiding something. Just hide everything that you are OK with hiding. Just hide for the hiding of it. That will allow people who have stuff to hide to actually be more protected. And speaking of benefits of hiding information, let's take a look what happens if you think you do have nothing to hide. A government, historically, could hoard a bunch of data. These days, it's mostly corporations. They can also hoard a bunch of data on you, and that can lead to blackmail, right? They control a lot of data. They can try to influence you by saying, we're going to publish or we're going to use this data one way or another. It can also lead to impersonation, of course. And impersonation these days is really easily online. It's easily done. You don't need much to impersonate someone online. And data hoarding makes it even more easier. How many services online do you know that do not accept a copy, a photo of your ID and your selfie as an identification? Now, imagine you send this kind of identification to service number 1. What will stop an employee at service number 1 from forwarding this to service number 2, 3, and 4 in your name? Herd immunity. This is what I just outlined. So many people not hiding anything make the few stand out more and draw suspicion. This is a term that I've taken from the health industry, right? Herd immunity. You have to vaccinate so that those that aren't vaccinated, those are protected because people around them are vaccinated. Same principle here. And of course, today's authority, today's government, for example, might become totalitarian or inhumane. There's nothing much we can do about it as a single individual or as an organization. It's where society may be going in some countries. Hopefully not, but it might. Imagine what Hitler might have done if he had the technology of today. And it worries me a great deal. Now, let's take a look at the state of privacy in the world today, last year, beginning of this year. I also included some examples from my own personal life and my own personal experience, because I love, well, I don't enjoy it, actually, but I do deal with privacy a lot. I do think it's important to deal with privacy and to protect privacy. Now, this is half a year ago. There were large protests starting in Hong Kong, and protesters were smart enough to not use their Metro cards, right? Because Metro cards are like digital cards that you can use to actually travel on the Metro, and it's trackable to your identity. And they were afraid. So I don't know if it's good or bad that they're afraid, but the good part is that they're getting smarter. They understand the impact of possibly using cards that are traceable. So there were these huge queues at the machines because they were buying the tickets cash. They didn't want to be traced. Of course, the smartest of them also didn't take their mobile phones with them, because that's another way. So I say disobey, go cashful, right? The opposite of cashless. Cashless is so 2019. 2020, let's go cash full. I know I'm saying that in Finland, but come on, guys. Now, CCTV. CCTV is everywhere. These are 3 real posters from the United Kingdom. Secure beneath the watchful eyes. More CCTV means more security for you, and we're watching out for you. So, and all of them are, they aren't pranks. They are real posters published either by the government or the municipality. So they're trying to normalize that, of course. Speaking of government wanting to normalize stuff, in the US, Los Angeles actually created a new ordinance asking all the new scooter companies, all companies doing the e-scooter renting things, to give information about where the scooters are located. Now, it has a noble purpose, which I'm sure many of you in the audience will resonate with. They wanted to make sure that the scooters are also available to the underprivileged. So in the parts of the city where people don't make as much money. The problem I have with the idea is, why does I need real-time data? I mean, for this purpose, for auditing this, you can easily be OK with data once a month, maybe once every 3 months. But that's what they did. And here I have to say I have to side with Uber finally, even though I think Uber is, I don't want to get sued, but Uber is, in my personal opinion, not the most ethical of the companies. But here I think they're trying to do a good job and opposing, the only company that is opposing this new legislation. Now, how do you disobey? You can block the GPS or other satellite system receiver, right? In countries where it's legal, you can also jam it. In most countries, it's not legal. But if it's your stuff, not talking about scooters here, but if it's your stuff, you can easily build a tinfoil hat. And those actually work if you put them over antennas. You put a tinfoil hat over antenna, you ground it, perfect. Face recognition is happening a lot. And we've heard some news about that. So here in this article from the Metro, about half a year ago, a bit more, a gentleman was walking on the street in a city in the UK, and someone warned him that police is doing facial recognition up front. So what he did, he pulled his sweater over his face and walked past the cameras. Police stopped him, forced him to scan his face, found nothing in the database, and fined him £90 for not allowing to scan his face in the first place. So that's crazy if you ask me. So luckily in the EU we can sue the police, so people in the UK can also do that for a while. I mean, the EU is one of the group of countries in the world that actually really works on allowing people to exercise their rights. We have some others as well. I hope the UK will remain the same, in the same category, allowing to exercise the rights that way. Now, going back to the Hong Kong part, right? You've probably heard this, right? So they banned the face masks for the protests because the citizens were not using Metro cards. You couldn't track them. They weren't taking their mobile phones. So they employed face recognition, trying to understand who's participating in the protests. People started wearing masks. And that led basically to the government banning that. And then the court said that's unconstitutional. Full hearing on this topic has started this year, past months. So mid-January, it has actually started. There is no final result yet. But now with the new coronavirus, the COVID-19, we don't hear so much about it in Europe. So I had to actually go to local news outlets to find the update on the case. So apparently, the government is in a bit of dilemma right now. They told people not to wear masks, and now they want people to wear masks because of virus safety, right? But still, the government is expected to go forward with the case. They aren't planning on dropping the case because they think officially their position is that it's important for their legal system to understand how this part of the Constitution works, enacting emergency laws. That's what it's all about. And also, legal experts say that it's unlikely, the case is unlikely to be won by the citizens due to legal formalities. The people who submitted the case actually apparently didn't have a right to do so. But still, so we of course have Mac Pierce with this great invention that he made before the actual ban was lifted, when the ban was still in place. So you can have a cap like that, and you can have a face, for example, like the general secretary of a communist party of some country or something, and then you can go and have your face scanned, right? Then, of course, Clearview AI. News broke only last month. And the bad news for us is that many European countries are in on it. My country, Latvia, was in the map in one of the articles. So that's a company that actually gathers all the pictures of your faces from everywhere. And I mean, I try hard not to be on social, I try hard for my face not to appear on social networks unmasked, but having videos of me giving talks is kind of, it kind of screws that over. So, but here, a way to disobey is keep your photos offline. That would be really radical these days, right? But that could work. Now, privacy advocates, me including, have been complaining about not being able to do anything without a phone number, including not being able to get online without a phone number. So the Moscow airport actually fixed that. I pulled this one from Twitter. So it allows you to get online without giving you a phone number. All you have to do is upload your passport photo and your selfie, and you're online. I mean, not the greatest of ideas, but it's kind of a workaround, right? But there are other workarounds. Disobey by using DNS tunneling usually works. It's not just China and Russia. Facial recognition is also getting adopted in Europe. They're really getting in on the idea. But why are they asking for permission? And now that they've gotten a negative answer, will they listen? So this article in French, it says that the CNIL has issued an opinion saying that it's not a good idea and we cannot do that in the project that we're doing. And I think, yes, they will listen, because GDPR, yay. European Data Protection Board here has fined a similar project, 20,000 euros. Not a large fine, but it's a start for doing the same. So I'm thinking we are onto something here with GDPR in Europe. So this is a really important way to disobey. Hack GDPR. It's available. You have to hack it. You have to use it for yourself. It's not easy at first, but as soon as you get the grip, it just works. You can use it to your advantage. Now, Riga, the capital of Latvia, where I'm from, this is a presentation that I went to, presentation by the police. They are presenting the new car, a set of cars. There's one car in particular. So the car will drive around the city with the driver, and it will film everything that's happening around it, and will allegedly automatically create citations for not wearing your seatbelt, speaking your mobile phone, not showing the turn signal, and so on. I really enjoyed being at the presentation, because, I mean, wow, those guys are so straightforward with their stuff. I mean, I guess the number BB1984 was taken, so they had to use GC, but Orwell would be really proud of this openness about the whole idea. Now, how do we disobey that? Obey the traffic rules. Easy. Then you don't get scanned, right? Now, a bit less than 2 years ago, I had this slide that's on the screen right now. So it's People's Daily China saying that what else can surveillance cameras do in the classroom other than exam supervision? They use cameras to identify students' facial expressions for class performance. So you actually have a panel for the teacher saying that depending on the facial expressions, this child is afraid, this is sleepy, this is fun, having fun, this is concentrating, and so on. Well, of course, China has to go forward. It's an inventory, and taking all the new things and testing them out on real, actual human beings, children in this case. So what they have last year is they actually use brain scanning for the same thing. So pupils get to put on brain scanners, and then we have the same panel where it's visible. So this is a short video.
Teachers at this primary school in China know exactly when someone isn't paying attention. These headbands measure each student's level of concentration. The information is then directly sent to the teacher's computer and to parents. China has big plans to become a global leader in artificial intelligence. It has enabled a cashless economy where people make purchases with their faces. A giant network of surveillance cameras with facial recognition helps police monitor citizens. Meanwhile, some schools offer glimpses of what the future of high-tech education in the country might look like. Good job! Classrooms have robots that analyze students' health and engagement levels. Students wear uniforms with chips that track their locations. There are even surveillance cameras that monitor how often students check their phones or yawn during classes.
So I say that is dystopian as hell, but young children don't know any better. They will grow up to be the next citizens, and they will find that completely normal. Actually, I'd say that maybe 50 years from now, cities that will be using this technology, like having uniforms with RFID chips, will be laughed at. Like I'm being laughed at for using my old Nokia 3330 today, because everyone will have chips under their skin. and it'll be OK. Because what they're doing here, and in Europe and America as well, is they are moving slowly. They're moving step by step. Remember when Finland didn't use digital money transactions that much when you made all the purchases with cash? Tens of years ago, but still. And now it's normal. Now it's OK. And the tracking, that's just a side business. It's not important. You're used to that. And same is going to happen with all these other technologies, unfortunately. We will get, or we will be made, used to those. So here it's easy. Just disobey, as kids usually do in school. Throw a tantrum, right? Misbehave. Do some mischief. Spying on our kids is not only happening in China. It's also happening in the US. And here, luckily, they don't have headbands yet, but they do have a different system. I'm going to tell you about the system a bit. This is an article from The Guardian. I'm going to read a couple sentences from it, but I encourage you to actually take a look at it. So the reason why schools have implemented the system is, of course, lawsuits. In the US, I hear you can get sued by anybody for anything. So there have been lawsuits against the schools by parents whose children have committed suicide, or by parents of children who have been cyberbullied. And that's the reason why the schools and the parents are OK with the system. And the system works like that. So it's not like you send an email, and then after 2 days, they come to you and talk to you about the email. In Weld County, Colorado, a student emailed a teacher that she heard 2 boys were going to smoke weed in a bathroom. The student services were alerted immediately by the system, and within 4 minutes of sending this email, the troops had deployed. So that's the gist of that paragraph from the article. So 4 minutes is the reaction time. And the scope isn't limited to what's happening on school grounds either. It includes what students are doing in their free time in their public social media accounts. It includes what they're doing at home if they are using laptops or devices that belong to the school. And the system also automatically sends students an email every time they use a profanity. Some proponents of the school monitoring system say that this technology is part of educating today's students in how to be good digital citizens, and that monitoring in school helps train students for constant surveillance after they graduate. That's a quote from a person, from a proponent of this technology. Continuing with the quote, take an adult in the workforce. You can't type anything you want in your work email. It's being looked at. Bill McCullough, a Google spokesperson, said, we're preparing kids to become successful adults. That's their justification behind the system. And the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, on the other side, they have a different perspective on that, right? Schools don't post on a bulletin board outside the principal's office, here are the words we are searching for, Marlowe from ACLU said. It forces students to be careful. They might not write about things or talk about things that are not, in fact, being monitored. So this is a chilling effect that may actually inhibit growth and self-discovery. And one of the disturbing parts, I mean, I'd say it's the most disturbing part, but all of these parts are disturbing to me. So one of the disturbing parts is that in the United Kingdom, the same technology has already been successfully tested for use in counterterrorism efforts. So they're using the same technology for counterterrorism, and here it's fair to ask if it's OK that we use technology that is meant to stop terrorism against our kids. Let's take a moment to talk about the company name, Gaggle. That's one of the 2 companies referred to in the Guardian article, Gaggle. So gag is a verb, to prevent from exercising freedom of speech or expression. I think that's a great company name for what they're doing to the kids over there. Now, another thing I want to talk about is the end of end-to-end encryption. And it's been called warrant-proof encryption by the US Attorney General William Barr. GCHQ has suggested that tech firms' communication services should be able to surreptitiously add intelligence agents to conversations or group chats. That's the idea behind what they are trying to do. And I think that's where we're going to end at. We've had Crypto Wars #3 for a while now. And we cannot, and we will not, I think we will not, kill encryption. We will not weaken encryption algorithmically. It's too important these days. Banking, safe email browsing, all the stuff that we use encryption for, even if we don't know it as users. So it's not going to happen. What is going to happen is that I think major corporations will actually agree to keep the encryption protocols intact, but make it so that people of interest can have government agents added to their chats, and the app doesn't show that there's another person in the chat. I think that's where we're going to go to. Interesting that Jim Baker, the FBI General Counsel, had a change of heart. So afterwards, at the end of last year, he published an article saying that it was all a bad idea. Let's not have backdoors, and let's not do that. Is it because of this? Probably not. It's actually old news that have resurfaced just, I think it was this week, right? Operation Caesars or Operation Rubicon, Crypto AG, as you've heard, was owned by Germans and the Americans, backdooring stuff forever. Well, the solution to this and the previous slides is, of course, Disobey, roll your own apps. Do not roll your own crypto, but rolling your own apps is a solution that we can use to thwart the threat that's coming to our freedom of secure communication. Now, speaking of encryption, by the way, if you missed that, last year, at the very end of last year, the German BSI finally published the TrueCrypt report. You can actually read the full, the new one and the old one, TrueCrypt report, and take a look at the security. Security is actually quite good in there. So Disobey by using TrueCrypt and removing the bugs beforehand. The bugs aren't that serious, by the way. In specific contexts, you can safely use TrueCrypt. There's also VeriCrypt, but it's the circumstances or how it came to be are a bit shady to me. So I'm not into the whole VeriCrypt thing. Even though it's open source, you can take a look and compare it, of course. Now, going on to a different topic with the same article, if you notice on the bottom of the screen, quite interesting. So it actually, I opened it up and it gave me beginning of the article, but not the other part of the article. It gave me some stuff in German. So yeah, I'm talking, of course, here about JavaScript, the technology that fuels the modern web, from dynamic web pages to tracking. And here's another one. So it's, I was trying to order some stuff online. And what it basically says there, so either you enable JavaScript, or you can log in. Doesn't matter. Either JavaScript or login. So are they basically admitting here, we need a way to track you? Is that it? So disobey this bullshit by using bugme.com or similar. I used to have to browse with JavaScript disabled to have the web not work for me. Now, all I get to do is browse from Europe. And I get stuff like that, where the largest part of the screen is just something else. It's just like some consent, something, something, and it's really hard to use these pages here. I really like this Washington Post here. So it allows you to browse for free, right? But when you actually press browse, it says, OK, there's this GDPR thingy you have to agree to. You can read it through, and then you look there, and there's I agree. And the continue to site is not enabled unless you press I agree. But you can, of course, press go back, and then you're presented with other options like pay, and then we will not track you. So that's not OK, but they are not in the EU, so they may get away with it for quite some time. But they will have to think of something else, of course, for the European users. And this is a Disobey tip for people who actually work on creating web platforms, on creating web applications. Disobey by motivating your team to comply with GDPR in the most transparent and the fairest possible way. I had to have a rant about JavaScript. Now, let's get back to encryption. Let's take WhatsApp as an example. If WhatsApp, for example, we're doing something shady, like adding other people to your chat without telling you, one thing you can do is you could root or jailbreak your phone. And that way, you can actually take a look at what's happening inside the memory of the app, inside the sandbox. But unfortunately, WhatsApp has recently added these 2 pages to their rules. You cannot run WhatsApp on a jailbroken or rooted phone anymore. I wonder why. OK, so I can't root my phone. What if I install a third-party app? Well, that's a problem as well. WhatsApp has been warning and even banning people for using third-party apps. And it's not a new rule. It's been there for a while, but they are enforcing it in waves. So last wave, as far as I know, happened almost a year ago when they were warning and banning people about that. They actually have a separate page saying temporarily banned account. Most likely, reason is because you were using a third-party app. Disobey by self-hosting your stuff. There are multiple chat applications that you can actually use to self-host, like Riot or Wire or whatever you like. Third-party apps could also help with working around glitches. So if you're privacy conscious, like me, you have and you are forced to use WhatsApp because friends and communication, then you're probably not given access to your phone book. So I'll show you how you can start a new chat with someone in WhatsApp when it doesn't have access to your phone book. So all you have to do is go to your normal phone dialer. You have to type in the number of the person you want to chat with in WhatsApp. You dial using normal phone dialer. You close it down because you don't actually want to call them. Then you go to recents. Then you open the recent up. Then you hold it on call. Then you select call on WhatsApp because you want to call on WhatsApp for a second there. Then you press the red button because you don't really want to call. You just want to chat. Then you go to recents over there. Then you press the I. Then you press the chat bubble. And then you can chat. That is how you can start a new chat on WhatsApp with someone if you do not give access to the phone book. Now, luckily, they fixed it about half a year ago. So now you can actually press the button and it says, we don't have access, but how about you type it in? So that's good. That's really good. I mean, WhatsApp still has a bunch of problems privacy-wise, but at least we have that. Let's talk about other apps. So there's this app Socratic. School children, maybe some students use it. It's mainly made about chatting about and communicating about schoolwork. So those of you who use iPhones, I do believe those are a bit more, it depends, right? If you jailbreak, then not. But if you don't jailbreak, then OK, never mind. Not gonna go into the flame war here. OK, so those of you who use iPhones, as you know, developers can actually add a sentence to the message. They cannot change the top, the bold one. They cannot change the buttons, but in the middle, they can write whatever they want. So Socratic developers have typed in here, it's only for chatting about homework. Don't worry. So if you're privacy conscious, you, of course, press don't allow, and this happens. It basically says, we kind of need that, not going to work. OK, well, there are other apps as well. For example, there's a taxi app in many countries. It's becoming more and more popular. I think it's based in Estonia originally. It's called Bolt. And when they changed the branding from Taxify, this is what happened. I could still order the taxi by pressing the button on the bottom. But I could not open my profile. I couldn't see my past rides. I couldn't look at my email address, at my phone number, nothing. Because this pop-up about GPS was over the button. You can't actually even see the button because it's so washed out over there. And I mean, it's a problem, right? Why do you need GPS to give user access to his own data in the app? So what I did is I submitted official request to them. I called the support at first. And the support told me, please give us your phone number so we can investigate. I told them that's why I'm writing. I don't have access. I used a random number. I don't know what it is. So they told me we can't help you. So I filed a GDPR request by identifying myself using my recent rights. I actually wrote a couple times using the set packet manually button, and I wrote down the numbers of the cars and the specific times, and I gave it to them. Yeah. And that's still ongoing. The GDPR request is still unresolved. We also have Yandex Taxi stuff in Latvia, which is a Russian company. Some say it's linked to Russian government, but since these guys basically made using it impossible to me, I decided that I'd try it out. So what I did is I went to the airport using the Yandex app. I saw the driver give me 5 stars out of 5. I did the same to the driver. And I turned off my phone because I was going really far away. I didn't want any data chargers. I go back to Latvia. intent on using Yandex to get back from the airport, and I'm greeted with this nice message saying, so you can order a taxi, but not earlier than 31st December 2022. So I had to wait a bit, but there we go. So we have that. So disobey this by banishing the baneful. And I'm telling that to Apple and Google, because those are the ones that can do that. Apple and Google are screening apps anyway for different issues. They should screen for behavior like that, where by disabling a permission, app refuses to work. Of course, if you download a camera app and don't give it camera permission, it's OK for it not to work. If you download a map, it doesn't need GPS. Yes, it's more convenient that way, but it has to work without GPS. So that's what I like to call upon Apple and Google to do. Now, let's look at another important aspect of everyone's everyday life, watching pornography online. Australian government has proposed a new system. You may have heard about it. They did withdraw it quite quickly after the proposal, but the idea was basically, as long as you're watching porn, you need to have your camera on so they can identify if you're of legal age or not. I don't know how that would work, right? Disobey this by going on a date instead of watching porn. Speaking of that, Facebook dating has launched in the United States last year. It's supposed to roll out in the EU sometime this year. And the thing is, it actually provides more privacy. If you do create this separate Facebook dating profile, you can decide to only show your first name. You can decide which pictures can be seen, and so on. And it actually also changes. It may also change, if you want to, how your normal profile looks like. It can give you a bit more granular security over there. But there's one problem. Do you know what it is? In order to use Facebook dating, to enable it on your account and to update anything in the Facebook dating profile, you have to have GPS on at the time when you're doing that. So you can't get anything out of Facebook unless you give them something, I guess. And of course, there's this nice article in the New York Times about half a year ago, Facebook under oath, you have no expectation of privacy. That is basically what they said in the courtroom. So disobey by screwing Facebook and going federated. Use federating social networks. I think we can do it if we do it all together. Now, a story from my life. One of the results, one of the more classical results, old school results of not protecting your privacy is getting spammed. You start getting messages to your phone, like this one, for example. This comes not from number, it comes from a text, from a letter number, crediton.lv, and it basically says, hello, unfortunately, your application to the credit has been denied. Crediton.lv. I've never tried to apply for any kind of credits or loans in my life. So this was funny. Of course, I have the URL over there. I type it in, the domain name. I go, I take a look. I find their address. I hop on my, I take my phone. I call them up, and no one picks up. I thought, OK, well, that's unfortunate. I called them again next day. It doesn't work. I hop on my bike. I go to their office, and I show them this mess. They write down my number on a piece of paper, go back, backstage to where IT guys and girls are sitting and working on stuff, and come back to me saying, sorry, we don't have your number in the system. Someone else must have sent it. Now, by day, I'm an IT security expert. I run security companies. And that is feasible. I could send an SMS like that, not to myself, to any one of you, if I knew your number. I could fake it easily. So I apologize for the disturbance and go away. Problem solved. 7 days later, I get an SMS saying, you can win 50 euros if you do that, and that. Obviously, I take my phone. I call them up. They don't pick up. As it turns out, they block numbers. They block calls from numbers that are not visible to them. And obviously, my number is not visible to them. So unfortunate for them. So again, I look up their address. I actually see that they work until 10 p.m. So it's around 8:30 p.m. and I drive to their office. Office is closed. No one is opening the door. There's lights inside, but no one's opening the door. As I learned later, apparently the working hours are from their phone number that never works, and the office hours are something different. So still, this time I decide driving back from the office to actually visit the petrol station and fuel my bike with about €1 of petrol, just so I have damages to claim later on. Tomorrow I do the same thing. I go there, I fuel my bike on the way there, €1 more, and I'm in. I give them the phone number again. they look in the database again. We found it. And the story that they tell me is that, so, we didn't find it because you're not our client. I told them, yeah, I know. That's why I'm here, because you're spamming me and I'm not your client even. And apparently, they do not verify phone numbers unless they approve the credit. So when they approve it, then they verify it. If it's denied, then it just keeps spamming forever. So they removed my phone number. I politely asked for my €2 back for the fuel. They told me to send it by email. I did. And they replied to me, we need to know your account number, please, to transfer the money. I replied, I paid cash for the fuel. I'd like to have cash. Because I don't know about Finland, but in Latvia, to have €2 out of your account through the bank will cost you about €5 to pay to the bank for that service, not including the time you have to spend at the bank. They didn't reply to that email. 1 month later, I casually check my account in the bank, and I see €2 from the guys in my account. I still, to this day, do not know how that happened. I do not know where did they get my account number. I'm too afraid to actually ask them.
Obey your master, master.
But I mean, there are things you can do. We have these anonymous prepaid cards. I use them a lot. This is one of my old ones, expired ones. You can try to, I don't know if you're allowed to, but I mean, go ahead. There's nothing in there anymore. So yeah, that's quite cool. You can actually use them. The problem, of course, is when you try, for example, to buy a domain, it asks you for a name on a card. You don't enter it because there is no name on the card. And then, basically, you have this fancy error and a bug in the software. And so, yeah. We have video cameras on public transport, of course. This is a picture from Vienna. We have them in Riga and Tallinn, everywhere. So can't really work on a bus because you don't know how good the cameras are. Passwords may be at risk. Private info on your screen may be at risk. So you can disobey that by riding a bike, right? Depending on how green you are, it can be a motorbike or a bicycle. Airports, backscatter scanners. Now, people have different problems with this. For example, people didn't like in the beginning that it was undressing them digitally. Then what the vendors did, they actually made the system in a way that you can not see the person, that AI automatically detects if it's a threat or not. And if you worked with a scanner, or if you've talked to someone who worked with a scanner, you know that the first thing operator has to do is select the gender or the sex. It doesn't actually say. You just select an icon of a male or female on the screen. That's for the eye to know where suspicious stuff is going to be. And that's just bullshit. But for me, the main problem is that AI is taking decisions in a non-transparent way. Now, of course, it's easy to disobey that. Just demand the pat-down. Works for most countries in the world, even UK for now. Now, one thing that is quite secure, if it's used as a second factor, for example, as an additional way to verify someone's identity, are fingerprints, of course. And historically, in Latvia, we did not need to give up our fingerprints. But then the regulations changed, and they started to ask for fingerprints in the passport, the biometric passports. It was supposed to make air travel safer. I've traveled around the world, basically. I've been to both ends of the world, and no one has tried to scan what's in my passport. Don't ask me how I know, but no one has tried to scan it. So I don't know if security is really there, but still. So they told, we'll only store fingerprint in your passport. So then I learned, I'm talking about Latvia here, where I live, then I learned that government is secretly actually storing a copy of that, because why wouldn't they, right? And I asked around. And what happened is that they told, OK, we also store the hash in the database. I got the official answer. And at the same time, they rushed to have a new legislation going on. So biometric data storage or something law that allows them to store the data. So they fixed that in post-production, as we say. And what I did, I requested the data afterwards. I actually asked, so, OK, if you store the hash in the database, can I see the hash, please? GDPR, and stuff. So yes, I can. I got the WSQ files. These are actually FBI's wavelets color quantization algorithm files. And luckily, there is exactly one place on GitHub where you can go and take a look. Open source tool that you can go and take a look at these files, and there's my whole fingerprint in there in the file. So a bit disappointed there. But yes, that's how it is. I mean, those of you who are a bit less privacy conscious or maybe getting a bit skeptical, I see some of the faces getting skeptical about my bullshit here up on the stage on privacy is important, right? What's the difference, right? Government has a hash or government has a picture? Well, you know how hashes work, right? If you have a hash, you cannot plant a hash on a dead guy and then go arrest me. A picture, yeah, you can. I guess you can do that. There are technologies. So disobey this by lobbying for more privacy. It's really hard. You cannot do much action, direct action stuff against stuff like that, but you have to lobby. I think that's all we have there. Now, boarding passes are cool. You should never publish your boarding pass barcode so that people can see it because it contains private information in the barcode. They're totally insecure. The problem is that shopping in the airport, they usually require to scan your barcode. I always ask why. So apparently, they need to know my flight number. I'm happy to give them my flight number. Actually, the flight number is usually one of the largest text on the boarding pass, BT314 in this case. But they still need to scan it. So we go back and forth there with them. And I've actually found a solution. I'm working on a presentation called Travel for Hackers that I'm going to present in 1 month in InsomniHack. And one thing that I need more people for is developing an app. So you can disobey here by talking to me or sending me an email or a tweet and making an app with me. So the app will will modify your boarding passes to remove all the sensitive information, but it of course will have a disclaimer that you can only use it for shops. Don't try to get into lounges, business lounges, or don't try to get into secure areas with that boarding pass, but just for shops. So that's the app I want to work on, and I want to, if you know how to make web apps or mobile apps, let's talk about that. OK, let's summarize. So what do we have? User demand for privacy. I marked this a frowny face because it's not really good. Users don't give a crap. I mean, out of the people here, so how many people now at the very end of the presentation still think that it's important? Privacy is kind of thing we should work on. OK, a bit more than we had hands at the beginning. That is good. So, but outside here, the demand isn't there. Users don't understand. What's going to happen? I'll publish my naked selfie online. That's OK. I'll have my DNA in the database to test if I'm Italian or European or American or sure, why not? Cookie law. Well, for cookie law, the status is that it failed. It failed miserably. So we have these banners. Now these are replaced with different banners, but we had these banners for a while saying, we have cookies, press close here. Of course you have cookies. GDPR for big data, I also rate with this frowny face because it doesn't work for big companies. They do not care, or they have found a way to lawyer their way out of that. So it's not effective. GDPR, in general, it works. The problem is user demand, but it works. For smaller companies, it's a great tool against smaller companies that abuse your data. The problem is that these three things are EU only, so that's something as a global community we should also work on. Now, surveillance technology, also frowny face, it's getting better and better and harder to detect, so that may cause problems for people working in oppressive regimes, working for democracy, for example, where it's not really allowed. Also, think about that. Think about encryption. I have a neutral face here because encryption is really good. We actually have encryption that is resilient, supposedly resilient against quantum computers we don't even have yet. But how many of you would notice that your favorite app that you update from the App Store has added a backdoor? Encryption is still there, but it just sends a copy with a different key to somewhere else. Some of you would notice, yes, but most of you wouldn't. So that's why encryption is a neutral face there. So the summary is it's not too good. It's not looking too bright. So we need to work on user demand. We need to make sure that people know about GDPR. And cookie law, let's forget about that. That's important. GDPR for big data. GDPR has to be revamped. Politicians have to work on it, and they have to fix GDPR so it can effectively apply to big data and big corporations. Now, for surveillance technology and encryption, this needs to be fixed by hackers. This needs to be fixed by people like you, many of you in the audience here. We need technological solutions to these things over there. Now, privacy, and indeed human rights, are a relatively recent invention. They've been among us for 100, maybe 200 years, which is why, at least in my eyes, it's even more deplorable to see corporations and governments alike hastily eating away at our fundamental right to privacy for their own benefit. And privacy should not be a luxury that only the rich can afford. Privacy is for everyone. It is a fundamental right. And like with all fundamental rights, any encroachments on them need to be terminated aggressively and decisively. Thank you.